Welcome to this explainer. Using Notebook LM as our main information source today, we are going to dive into something absolutely crucial for your personal safety. Picture this: the next time you sit in a salon chair, someone is going to hold incredibly sharp scissors right near your eyes, or maybe paint industrial-strength bleach directly onto your scalp. Today, we're exploring the Ohio licensing system so you know exactly how to verify that the person standing behind the chair is actually legally qualified to be there.
It's a pretty startling thought, isn't it? The physical risks of everyday salon procedures are very real. You are essentially trusting a complete stranger with your personal health and safety. So, do you know for an absolute fact that they're a verified professional? Well, let's look at exactly how you can find out.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. 1. Why verify cosmetology licenses? 2. Navigating the e-license portal. 3. Decoding license status results. 4. Handling invalid or expired licenses. And 5. Helpful tools and resources.
Section 1. Why verify cosmetology licenses? The stakes of salon safety.
You know, the state of Ohio doesn't just hand these licenses out to anyone who asks. The Ohio State Cosmetology and Barber Board enforces some really strict standards, and for good reason. First and foremost is to ensure strict infection control. Improperly sanitized tools can spread some serious infections. Second, it's to protect your personal safety from those harsh chemicals and sharp tools we just talked about. Third, verifying a license helps you avoid fraudulent or completely unregulated services, where honestly, you'd have zero legal recourse if something went wrong. And finally, and I think this brilliantly illustrates the rigor of the profession, checking a valid license confirms that the practitioner has completed a staggering 1,500 hours of approved training. Think about that. That is a massive commitment to education standing between you and a preventable, painful mistake like a chemical burn.
Section 2. Navigating the e-license portal. Your step-by-step verification guide.
Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds out into a really simple, actionable process. Step 1. You just want to navigate your web browser to elicense.ohio.gov/OH-verify-license. Once you're there, Step 2 requires you to look at the interface and toggle between search for an individual or search for a business. That just depends on whether you're looking up a specific stylist or the salon as a whole. Now, Step 3 is absolutely vital. You must use the drop-down menu to select the Cosmetology and Barber Board agency. The portal actually houses data for 24 different state boards, so if you don't filter this, you might end up looking at a nurse or a pharmacist who just happens to have a similar name. Finally, for Step 4, you execute the query by typing in the person's name or their specific license number and just hit search.
Now, here is a fantastic insider tip that is incredibly helpful. Sometimes you might go to a salon and your stylist is a recent graduate. You search their name and a standard license number just doesn't pop up. Well, before you panic, be aware of the applicant exception protocol. On the search results table, you might actually see their name listed with an @P prefix right under the license number column. All this means is they're in the official examination or review pipeline awaiting their permanent license. You can actually click that @P link to view their active status in the system. It proves they're totally legitimate and actively working through the final state board processes.
Section 3. Decoding license status results. Translating the bureaucracy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how remarkably black and white the law actually is here. If the status says active, you are completely good to go. That practitioner is fully authorized, current, and in good standing to perform services. But if the status says literally anything else like inactive, pending, or closed, that person is legally prohibited from practicing or providing services for compensation in Ohio. An inactive license might just mean they voluntarily placed it in escrow, right? And a closed license might mean it was revoked due to a violation. But for you as the consumer, the operational meaning is exactly the same either way. They should not be cutting your hair.
You know, you might also stumble upon a highly specific, kind of confusing bureaucratic status called generate fee. I want to de-jargonize this one for you real quick. If you see this, it means the state board has conditionally approved their application or renewal, but the person basically owes the state money. Maybe a credit card bounced or a check just hasn't cleared yet. But make no mistake, even though they're conditionally approved, their legal authority to practice is fully suspended until those payments clear the system. So even a generate fee status is a definite red flag that they aren't fully licensed to operate that day.
Section 4. Handling invalid or expired licenses. What to do next?
Okay, so the very first thing you should do if a salon isn't showing up is consider their branding. There's often a massive discrepancy between a business's official legal name on the state registry and their highly creative doing business as, or DBA name on the actual storefront. Just because Chic Curls Boutique doesn't show up in the e-license portal doesn't automatically mean they're operating illegally. They might actually be registered legally under something totally different, like Smith Enterprises, LLC.
So here is an expert compliance trick for you. If you suspect a naming mismatch, you can cross-reference the business using the Ohio Secretary of State, or SOS, business search tool. This is a totally separate state website that allows you to look up that creative DBA name and trace it straight back to the official corporate entity. Once you have that official corporate name, you can bounce back to the Cosmetology e-license portal, plug that name in, and honestly, more often than not, you'll find the active, perfectly valid license sitting right there.
Section 5. Helpful tools and resources. Where to get more support.
The state of Ohio actually has some pretty robust human-staffed resources to help you out with this. If you run into technical errors with the database itself, the e-license tech help desk is available at 855-405-5514. For just general questions, you can shoot an email to ohiocause@cause.ohio.gov. But crucially, if you need to escalate a safety issue or report on licensed activity, the board has an inspections and complaint supervisor specifically tasked with handling those exact reports. There's also a records request division if you ever need historical disciplinary data on a specific salon. The takeaway here is that human help is readily available to support your safety investigations, so please don't hesitate to use these channels if you need clarification or want to find alternative licensed professionals.
I really want to read you this direct quote from the Ohio State Cosmetology and Barber Board's charter. The board's mission is to protect and support the public through regulation and education, while protecting the integrity of the cosmetology and barbering industries. It's just so important to remember that this entire regulatory framework, the inspections, those 1,500 hours of schooling, and that e-license portal, they exist fundamentally for your protection. The state has done all the heavy lifting of setting the standards. We just have to take the initiative to utilize the tools they provided.
So the crucial point we need to make here is that laws and regulations are always evolving. In fact, Ohio recently enacted modernizations acts that updated reciprocity rules and facility licensing. Because this landscape constantly shifts, professional diligence is an ongoing evergreen necessity. Always consult the official Ohio State Cosmetology and Barber Board resources to ensure you have the absolute most up-to-date information. I highly recommend building a habit of maintaining a mental checklist of these credentials every single time you visit a cosmetologist to ensure your ongoing compliance and safety.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about why verification matters, exactly how to use the state portal, what all that legal jargon actually means, and where to go if you spot a red flag. You now have the practical tools to effortlessly check the credentials of anyone providing these services to you in Ohio. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you sit back in that salon chair, close your eyes and relax, will you know exactly who is behind the scissors? Stay empowered, stay vigilant, and thanks for joining me for this explainer.